Okay. You good? Mm-hmm. Okay, welcome back, everyone. It's actually interesting, Mrs. Galadny, that you're here because I actually want to report a Geneva. I've been using the other phone holder, and I can't find it now in my office.
Oh.
So it's good you got me too. No, I know. No, I just thought when I was pulling this one out, I thought of you because you got them, and then I walked in here and you were here.
Ryan just put into what he wants related to 3D print. He wrote Rabbi Sonnenschein, and it's a phone holder.
Oh.
So it's in line. I'll tell you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. That's great. That's so cute. You know, he told you that I went to visit him?
What?
Did he tell you that I went to visit him?
Yeah, I guess he was very disappointed that he didn't see the Rav. He's like, what? He was here? In camp?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess he
I don't know why. I didn't.
He missed you.
Oh, I didn't.
They didn't believe Ryan that you were there.
Oh, I didn't make a cheshbon. Like in my mind, one of them was there. Like I didn't make a cheshbon that they were both there. Okay, but they're back. Yeah. Okay. So we were away for a longer time than I think we've ever been away that I wasn't working. I've gone away for jobs, but I have not. We haven't gone away for this long. For not a job. In maybe my whole life. It's been, a long time. It's for sure since Waterbury. And it was really my wife's credit that she insisted that there be no work. And I was talking to my Rav on the phone, who I don't talk to too often, because if you think I'm busy, it's very hard to reach him. But I was talking to him on the phone 3 weeks ago, and I told him that I'm not going to be here for 3 weeks. I had to go speak to him. I ended up going when I came back. And I said, my wife said, if Rabbi Hopfer could go away for 3 weeks, you could go away for 3 weeks. And he told me, tell your wife she's very smart. So that's it. I was done. That's it. Baruch Hashem. And, we worked out, on the one hand, there are people that would have said that maybe it makes sense to be in Eretz Yisrael for Tisha B'Av. Who knows if we'll have a Tisha B'Av? It'd be good to be in Eretz Yisrael, no? But I felt like, we don't say Tachnun on Tisha B'Av because it's called a Yantif. Whatever the meanings are, we've discussed it over the years, and perhaps we'll discuss it again, but, there's a certain... Tisha B'Av is one of the times of the year. It's one of the special times of the year. It's a sad special time, but it's one of the special times of the year, and I feel very, very strongly that shul is a very important place during special times of the year. I just feel like it's an important. It's just important. So I'm happy to be back here. I'm not happy that we're going into a Tisha B'Av. I was so much hoping last year that by the time this Tisha B'Av came that we would be talking about the halachas of the Suda of Tisha B'Av. But if we have to have a Tisha B'Av, I want to have it with the Mispalalim here. And we go through all the Yom Tovim together. We're going to go through Tisha B'Av together also. I also feel like it's appropriate in a woman's share just to mention the Petira of Mrs. Rebbetzin Harris, who you such a eerie hashgacha. I was in Baltimore on Monday, and I was sitting together with Yitzhak Binowitz and Eli Brenner, and someone asked, where's Rebbetzin Harris up to? I was like, I don't know. I was like, Monday. And Tuesday, I got an email that she passed away. So it was interesting, it came up, But they have a tremendous, tremendous chus in this shul, and they really, really put in their koiches and enthusiasm and optimism, and, she was a kvater by one of our bris and her husband, and every time we saw her, when she was in the shul, after they left the shul, she always remembered that kibbutz. People usually don't remind you that we were kvater, but she was a very, very, very special, very beloved person, and everything that goes on in the shul, all the ruchnias and the aliyah and the chesed that goes on in the shul should be an aliyah for her neshama. It's been on my mind a lot going into the 3 weeks. I mentioned it in shul on a Friday night, and going into the 9 days, And now going into the last few days of the 9 days and Tisha B'Av, a very, very, very important approach to spending these few days, because there's something different that happens to our attitudes when it comes to the 9 days and Tisha B'Av that's different, let's say, than when we talk about Mirza Hashem in a few weeks. We'll be talking about El, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, we talk about Yom Tovim, we talk about things in a much, much different way. For some reason, there's a sense when we're dealing with Yantif, it's easier to access, like, that we have an avodah to do. On Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, we're going to do tshuva. And on Sukkot, we're going to grow from doing simcha. And on Chanukah, we're going to appreciate Hashem's nisim. We have what to do. We have what to build. But on Tisha B'Av, or the 9 days, somehow we don't naturally think that way. We think more like we're just supposed to be. We're supposed to be sad. We don't think about what we're supposed to do. So we're sad. We're supposed to be sad. And the truth is that it's not human nature to want to be sad. If somebody wants to be sad, you have to see if they're healthy. Naturally, people want to be joyous. People want simcha. People want joy. And therefore, when we have a yantif, a day, a special day on the calendar, that the avodah of the day is to be sad, there's a natural sense, I wonder if you feel it, I certainly go through it every year, there's a natural sense of like, okay, here goes, it's true, it's from the discomfort also. The 9 days is not always the most comfortable, and Tisha B'Av is certainly not so comfortable. But it's also a little bit like, who wants to just be sad? Like you came to a share tonight, what did you think you were going to hear? Happy stuff? We want, and because of that, a lot of people like to numb themselves through fast days or through Tisha B'Av. To not think that much, try to sleep as much as possible, or distract, or take care of the kids, or whatever, because, what should I do? Yeah, the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. It's very sad. I'm not even talking about all the shiurim that you've heard, hundreds of shiurim over the year, why are we still sad, and what, I'm not talking about that. Just this sense of motivation. We have a job to do. Do you feel that before Tisha B'Av? It's much harder to feel. Before Yom Kippur, you feel it. I have a job to do. Al Chait, Al Shamnu, I'm going to come out cleansed, I'm going to be ready for Sukkot. We have something to do. After Tisha B'Av, what do you feel? Can I be honest? I think most people feel like, thank goodness Tisha B'Av is over. Now, on with my life. That's what most people feel. Do you feel after Tisha B'Av, that was a geschmack of Tisha B'Av? Do you feel that? Oh, I don't know if I'm supposed to feel that. Okay. Do you feel like, that was a productive Tisha B'Av? Do we feel that? And I want to tell you something, a newsflash. We're supposed to feel that. We do have a job to do, and that's what I want to discuss tonight. And my bracha to you is that you shouldn't have Tisha B'Av this year, that Mashiach should come. But should we be sitting on the floor on Sunday? We have a job to do. And when we do it right, we should end with a certain feeling of, that was a job well done. Like at the end of a good Yom Kippur. The Ne'ilah comes, Hashem Aleichem, Hashem Aleichem. You know that feeling of closing your machzor and now it's time for Sukkot. I've had it, I'll be honest with you. Because I do a very public kinnis, and I'm talking for a lot of Tisha B'Av morning, and I have certain goals, and I'm trying to bring the Olam together and trying to accomplish something, which I'll talk more about in a minute. I have this funny feeling. I have it sometimes by a Levaya also. Please don't throw anything at me. I'm going to say this. I have this sometimes by a really good Levaya. Sounds like a funny thing to say. But the feeling of a little bit, in a very subtle way, in a mature way, a certain kind of joy. In the sadness. That was good sadness. If that sounds crazy to you, I hope that I'm going to change your mind in the next few minutes. But there's a certain satisfaction when you're sad right. Mm-hmm. When I officiate by a Levaya, and I'm able to connect emotionally to the person that was nifter and to their family, and I could do something meaningful, and I feel like I honored the nifter, I walk away sad with a tinge of happiness. You know better than me, but sometimes a recipe calls for a pinch of salt. So I serve a dish of sadness with a pinch of happiness. There's a pinch. Let me back up a drop, okay? I want to share with you a Dvar Torah that I said this Shabbos. That my Rosh Hashiva said, and it's very emotional to me because when we were in Eretz Yisrael, we did bring the family to visit my Rosh Hashiva. And I want to show you and just discuss how the attitude of that Dvar Torah could really, really focus our attention, not just on Tisha B'Av, but on the Shabbos that we're about to have. Shabbos Chazayin is a very special Shabbos. And that we can go in a little bit more enthusiastically, which I think would be very helpful. There's a kasha that they ask. It's very, very interesting. In Parshas Matos, this is not this. We don't learn this. The Moras don't teach these parshas. Unfortunately, because they're very important parshas. But did I ever tell you my thing about Chumash Bamidbar? It's a very, very interesting thing. We teach Chumash Bereshis, right? You teach Chumash Bereshis, right? You teach Chumash Shemais, right? By Chumash Vayikra is much, much harder. It's not, there's many parshas that are too hard to teach the children. But at that time, it's Purim time, Pesach time. So we kind of switch gears to Purim, Pesach, Sfira, Shavuos, right? We never get back to Bamidbar. And it's very hard to, because it's really the end of the year and it goes into the summer. So I'm not saying this as blame to anyone. It's just the way the Hashgacha is. But that means that our kids go through their school years learning Bereishis Shemais, but Vayikra Bamidbar Dvarim they don't learn. I'm not coming here from an educational curriculum standpoint. I don't care about that right now. I'm talking here about the stories. Now, Bereishis is about the Avos, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And the Imahos, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. They were as near perfect as anything we could possibly imagine. Right? They made mistakes, but the Avos and Imahos were just like perfect. We strive our whole lives. Masa Yagiu Maasai Lamasai Avaisai. Like, could I be a little bit like Avram Avinu? Shemais is all about these heroic events, miraculous events. Hashem's love. Yitzias Mitzrayim, Kriyas Yamsuf, Matan Torah. It's true, the Egel is in there. It's true. But the overwhelming story of Shemais is the greatness of the Jewish people. Right? Do you agree? What's the story of Bamidbar? You know what the story of Bamidbar is? All the mistakes we made. The Moshe hit the rock, and Klal Yisrael sent them a raglim, like all the mistakes with the nice Midian, and they rejected the man. The Jews, they were just like a difficult child. Okay, every parsha is another story of the mistakes that the Jews made. And what's the end of the story? What's the end of Chumash Bamidbar? Klal Yisrael is going into Eretz Yisrael. The last parsha, Parshas Maseh, is the sum up of the travels in the Midbar, and now we're going off into Eretz Yisrael. I think it hurts us that we didn't learn that as children. That we can make many, 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 many mistakes, and then Hashem says, okay, come, we'll take you into Eretz Yisrael. I love you, and I care about you, and I'm going to keep working with you, and I don't give up on you. And yes, I'm going to sometimes have to criticize you, and yes, I'm going to sometimes have to be tough, but I'm always here, and I'm not going anywhere. Isn't that an important lesson? We don't hear that lesson. We don't get that like inherent lesson in our bones. But in any event, anyway, that's my vent. I'm sorry. But in any event, the Parshas Matos talks about that Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu that Klal Yisrael should go to war with Midian. Midian did some terrible atrocities to Klal Yisrael, and to avenge the damage that they did to Klal Yisrael was going to go to war against Midian. And they went to war, and they won the war. And after the war, Moshe Rabbeinu gave Musar to the soldiers. I'm not even getting into the details, not even important. It's important. It's not important for this conversation. Moshe gave Musar to the soldiers, and then Elazar taught the soldiers the dinim of Tevilas Kalim and Kashering Kalim, which is in Parshas Matos. Okay? All of that is tons of fascinating things, but I'm trying to focus on one point. When Moshe spoke to the soldiers, it said that he spoke to the soldiers that came from the war. Habaim mi milchama. Mitzvah ha-milchama. They came from the war. Mem is from, right? They came from the war. For some reason, when Elazar spoke to them, just a few psukim later, it says that he spoke to the people that habayim, that are coming, la milchama, to war. The war was over. There's no way to read it that the war wasn't over. The war was over, and the pasuk says he spoke to the soldiers that are coming to war. What war? War was over. That's the question my Rosh Hashiva asked one Erev Tisha B'Av. Erev Tisha B'Av, whatever. And he said that he sometimes says over, he said that there was a Kadosh Elyon Echad. There was a holy Jew. He didn't tell us who it was. Who said a very, very, very important pshat in what was going on there. And it has to do with the Beis HaMikdash being destroyed. And he said as follows. Do you remember the massacre in Har Nof a few years ago? Remember that? So I remember that we talked then. We had a ladies' share then. And one of the things that those of us here around the table, one of the things that we struggled with is how could such a thing happen? You remember that, how could a guy successfully kill a Talmid Chacham? How could it happen, such a thing? So if that's a question, I have a better question. How could someone destroy a Beis HaMikdash? Do you know that when the Kohen Gadol used to go into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, if he had the wrong thought, he died? Okay, that's how much Yiras Shamayim there was in the Beis HaMikdash. There was an awe of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that was palpable. As Mikdashi Tiro. It was like there were miracles taking place inside. A guy? What's a guy? A guy who's full of Averas, he's dripping blood. He walked into he just was able to destroy the base. Does that make sense to you? It doesn't make sense. How was he able to destroy the base of such a holy place? Yeah. What?
A shaliach, because of our Averas.
Oh, so the Nefesh HaChaim says, even as a shliach, the point is, it's not just a shaliach. The point is that he didn't. Titus did not destroy the Beis Hamikdash.
So it's already gone.
That's the point. That's the point. The point is that what's the Beis Hamikdash? The bricks, the kalim? No, the Beis Hamikdash is that Hashem is inside. It's painful to say, but we destroyed the Beis Hamikdash. Because we're the ones that we weren't Zeicha that HaKadosh Baruch Hu stayed in the Beis HaMikdash. Once Hashem left, all that was left was a shell. And the Goyim just that were cleaning up. That's what the Nefesh HaChaim says. It's called, the Lashon in Chazal, when it talks about the Goyim destroying the Beis HaMikdash, it says, Kimcha Tchina Tachan. They ground flour. They weren't really doing, like you said, they weren't really doing anything. HaKadosh Baruch Hu did it. And they just turned off the lights, The same thing is true the other way. When the Beis HaMikdash is rebuilt, you think the bricks are the issue that's preventing the Beis HaMikdash from being built? We have to bring the Shechina. B'sechezena einenu b'shuvcha l'tzion berachem, and we tell Hashem that our eyes should see when you return to Yerushalayim. Everything will fall into place. We just need HaKadosh Baruch Hu to come back. V'li Yerushalayim ircha berachamim tashav. Just come back home. The external building, the bricks, I know a few contractors. We'll take care of it. That's not the issue here. The issue is that it should be filled with Kedusha, right? Says this Kadosh Elyon Echad. Klal Yisrael went to war against Midian. You think the soldiers were the ones fighting the war? So, no. Moshe Rabbeinu fought the war. Moshe Rabbeinu was our Pnimius. He was like our Neshama. When Moshe Rabbeinu davened to Hashem that we should win the war against Midian, when Moshe Rabbeinu taught Torah, When Moshe Rabbeinu infused us with Ruchnius, he was destroying Midian. The soldiers that went, they were fighting a war. No, they were cleaning up the leftovers. Moshe Rabbeinu fought the war. But the Torah says that after Milchemes Midian, that's the last major project that Moshe Rabbeinu did. The pasuk says, "Go avenge Midian, and then you will come back home to me." Hashem says, "Va'achar te'asef el amecha." So Elazar was saying that you're going to war. He was telling these soldiers, "You thought that was a war? That wasn't a war. That was a cleanup. Moshe Rabbeinu fought that war. But you're going to go into Eretz Yisrael without Moshe Rabbeinu. Now it's your turn to be the soldiers. You're going la milchama. You're going to war. Because the next war that you fight, the war is to conquer the Kanani and the Amori and the Prizi and so on, in Eretz Yisrael, then you're going to have to do both parts. You can't just, not going to just be a cleanup. Then you're going to have to daven. And you're going to have to have heilige thoughts. And you're going to have bitachon. And you're going to have to trust in Hashem. And you're going to need you're going to need to fight on a spiritual level as well. And that's why Elazar took the soldiers that came back from fighting that last battle and said that he spoke to the soldiers that are coming to war. Because what they did until now, that was Moshe Rabbeinu's war. Now it was going to become their war. That's what he said. Fascinating approach.
Why didn't Hashem want Moshe Rabbeinu to go into Eretz Yisrael?
It's a very, very complicated question. First of all, the original plan was that Moshe Rabbeinu would go into Eretz Yisrael. It was an einish for hitting the rock. But, the way that the world was at the time, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and there's many, many different levels of this, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu felt that the ruchnius and the permanence that Moshe Rabbeinu brings to what he does was not the right thing for Klal Yisrael at that time. Some people say it's actually a little bit Tisha B'Av related. Some people say that had Moshe Rabbeinu brought them into Eretz Yisrael, the Beis HaMikdash would not be able to be destroyed. And if the Beis HaMikdash wasn't destroyed, then we would have been destroyed. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu was Shafach, Hamasai, Al Eitzim, Va'avanim. He destroyed the Beis HaMikdash instead of destroying us. So that's what some people say. But there was whatever it was, a divine cheshbon, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't want him to go to Eretz Yisrael, and that we had to step up, and we had to be Moshe U'Bnei Yisrael, right? We had to do both roles. We always have Moshe in our hearts, but we have to do both roles. So that's really what I want to say about the next few days. The Chazal tell us that someone who's not mis'abel al Yerushalayim, someone that doesn't mourn Yerushalayim, will not see it rebuilt. And someone who does mourn for Yerushalayim does see it rebuilt. I don't think that that's just like a segula thing or some, I think it's a very practical thing. When we mourn for Yerushalayim, we're doing something. We have to stop feeling like, what are you doing on Tisha B'Av? I'm going to be sad. Tisha B'Av, the sadness of Tisha B'Av is not something that we be, just like the joy of Sukkot is not something that we be. When we're sad on Tisha B'Av, we are rebuilding the Beis HaMikdash more than if I gave you a pail of cement and a bunch of bricks and you went to the Makam HaMikdash to build it. That's nothing, that's bricks. When we mourn, we're bringing the Shekhinah back. Because you know where the Shekhinah comes to? The Shekhinah comes to those who recognize it. We bring the Shekhinah into this world because we recognize that Hashem is here. And we recognize that HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves us. And we recognize our responsibility to Him. And by doing the Avodah, and when we yearn for Him, when we cry because HaKadosh Baruch Hu has distanced Himself from us, that's not just like, oh, what a loss, Hashem distanced Himself from us. No, that's when He steps back. That's when He comes closer. So when someone's mis'abel al Yerushalayim, he sees the building of Yerushalayim, because when someone is building Yerushalayim, when someone is mourning Yerushalayim, he is literally building Yerushalayim. We're actually building Yerushalayim. And I think that that's That's the way that we have to go into the next few days. We have to be the Moshe Rabbeinu, and we have to blow, what did Hashem do to Adam? Hashem blew a neshama into him, right? That's what Hashem did to Adam. That's what we have to do to everything that we do the next few days. We have to blow Ruchnius into it. Vayipach ba'apav nishmas chaim. Blow Ruchnius into it. You're going to take a drink before you go to sleep tonight, and you're going to make a bracha. Blow Ruchnius into it. Thank Hashem for the drink in a way that's meaningful and real, that you're announcing that Hashem is here. That's our avodah. When Shabbos comes, and it's such a precious Shabbos, such mixed emotions on Shabbos, where on some level there are certain dinim of Avelos perhaps on Shabbos. There are kehilos in Europe that they didn't wear Shabbos clothes the Shabbos before Tisha B'Av. You know that? They did not wear Shabbos clothes. Many poskim say not to wear Shabbos clothes this Shabbos. Yeah, the reason why we do is because the Vilna Gaon was noyeg in Vilna that they wore Shabbos clothes, and we follow his minhag. But in many kehilos, and the way the Chayei Adam and others paskin, could you imagine this Shabbos, no Shabbos clothes? That is, according to many poskim, that's what this Shabbos is. And on the other hand, are we going to eat a Sudam Afsekes on the floor with ashes? No. We're going to eat Shalosh Shudas. What's the Shalosh Shudas going to look like? Let's open a Shulchan Aruch. Hilchos Tisha B'Av. Halacha of Sudam Afsekes. And it says that if you have Shabbos the day before Tisha B'Av, you know what your Shalosh Shudas should look like? Afilu Kisudas Shloima B'Shaitai. It could look like the Suda of Shloima HaMelech. Do you know what the Suda of Shloima HaMelech was like? Do you know that there's actually several psukim in Malachim that describe how much food and how fancy food was served on the table of Shlomo HaMelech? Okay, because that was the covet of the Malchus. Okay, that's what this Shabbos is. So as it gets closer to Tisha B'Av, Shulchan Aruch says, serve a Suda, Kesudas Shlomo B'Shaitai, a Bakavadik Suda, a royal Suda, because it may be such a sad time of the year, but it's still Shabbos. And on Shabbos, we're in a place of Geula. So it's a complicated Shabbos. But what's more important than understanding all the secrets of this Shabbos is that we blow a neshama into it. That's how we're going to build the Beis HaMikdash. We have to blow the Pnimiyas into it. La Milchama, we're going to war. I point out to you every year, and I'll say it again, I point out every year that the Shabbos before Tisha B'Av is always, without exception, the Shabbos before Tisha B'Av is always Parshas Devarim. That's the Shabbos before Tisha B'Av. And Parshas Devarim, there's a few psukim there where Moshe Rabbeinu tells Klal Yisrael, they were traveling, right? We are now entering the boundaries of Esav. Do not start up with him. Do not wage war with him. And it's amazing, we always read those psukim as we're heading into Tisha B'Av, the 9 days. Because it's the time, we're heading into the time where Esav was stronger, right? The Titus was stronger, where Nebuchadnezzar was strong. We're going into the Gevul of Esav. But this year, I'm changing my approach when I hear those words. I always feel tearful and emotional when I hear those words, and a little frightened. We're heading into the Gevul. Atem oivrim begevul achechem b'nei Esav. You're going into the boundaries of your brother Esav. Al tizgar bam, don't start up with him. Which, by the way, it says in Shulchan Aruch, right? You're not supposed to have a court case with a guy this month. It says, don't start off with him. Al tizgar bam. But this time I'm going in differently. We're soldiers. I had the schus to sit with my Rav a few days ago, as I mentioned to you. We went into Baltimore. And I was discussing a very difficult topic with him. And he said, I want to tell you a vart. Now, he says, I want to tell you a vart. He's trying to be mechazik me about what we're talking about. He said, the mitzvah of tzitzis has white strings and blue strings, right? But there are a few kehilas today that think that they know what the blue strings are. That's their shita. But Al Piroi, for most of the last 2,000 years, we didn't have blue strings, right? He said, besides for like the Binyan Beis HaMikdash or going back to Eretz Yisrael, which mitzvah do you have that applies all over the world? But you just can't do it. We just don't know what to do. Like tefillin. We have to have cows, hides. So we have cows and hides. Mezuzah, we have to have cloth. We have cloth. Right? Mila, we need special knives. We have special knives. Whatever we need to do every mitzvah, we have. One mitzvah we don't have. The blue strings on tzitzis. Why not? To make a long story short, he said, you know why not? You know what he thinks? He said a story that there was a time, some of you might know this story actually, there was a time that somebody needed, I'm shortening the story, but maybe one day I'll say it in its full glory. It's a delicious story. But Rabbi Chaim Sonnenschein was the Haredi Rav of Eretz Yisrael in his time. You know, the Zionists did not love him. And there was one time that one of the people that hated him the most and was most outspoken hatred to him, needed him because the guy's father was very, very sick, and only Rabbi Yosef Chaim could get Dr. Wallach, the big doctor in Yerushalayim, to treat this guy, even though he was such an enemy of the from Yidden. So he needed Rabbi Yosef Chaim to tell this doctor to please treat him. And he came to Rabbi Yosef Chaim's house, and he said, I know I've been terrible to you, but my father's dying and I need you. He said, he didn't even finish talking. Rabbi Chaim's like, okay, let's go. Let's do it. Because it needs me. Like, hey, let's do it. He said it was pouring rain outside. So this guy, this secular person, was like, can I give the Rav an umbrella? He's like, no umbrella. He's like, why not? He said, when I go do a mitzvah, I'm a soldier. You ever see in front of Buckingham Palace, the guards there, are they holding umbrellas? You don't hold umbrellas, you know, we're soldiers. We march to do the right thing. We're not being befanek ourselves, you know, like. So Rabbi Hapfer said that there's a, Chazal say that the tzitzis, on the four corners of a beged, they're a mark of our being servants of Hashem. That's what it says in Chazal. The white strings are a mark of our being servants. The blue strings are a mark of our being royal servants. Because tcheles is a royal color. Royal blue, he said. Just someone who appreciates colors. Okay? Royal blue. He said, maybe HaKadosh Baruch Hu's telling us that we're not yet up to a place that we're understanding that we're royal servants. We're not yet Zaycha to the tcheles. We have to do a better job at appreciating that we are royal soldiers. And I was so moved because, as you know, like when my wife spoke to Rabbi David after her father passed away, and she was telling Rabbi David how difficult it was, that was Rabbi David said, and not so many words, no stories. Rabbi David just like whispered to her, we're soldiers. Because we're here to do the Ratzon Hashem. And we are not powerless. We have a Beis HaMikdash to build. We're not waiting for the Beis HaMikdash to be built. I can't believe I've ever talked that way. We are not waiting for the Beis HaMikdash to be built. We are going to build the Beis HaMikdash. We have a job to do. We're going to build the Beis HaMikdash by yearning for Hashem, by blowing ruchnias into everything that we do. Yes, when they lane this Shabbos, Atem Oivrim Gvul Achechem B'nei Esav, you are heading into Gvul Achechem B'nei Esav. I used to listen to it like, okay, I hope I survive. Not this time. I'm not even going to hold an umbrella. This time, I'm going to listen. I'm a soldier, and I'm marching into Gvul Achechem B'nei Esav, and I'm going to do my job there. Yeah, perhaps I enjoy some Chas more. But I have a job to do in this Gvul of Esav. My job is to sit on the floor and to say, I could be more than this. We could be greater. We could have tchelas. We could have a Beis HaMikdash. This is not our life as we are meant to be. The rest of the year, we can't do it the whole year. Because we have to live our lives with pride and with joy. So the rest of the year, we push this into a short little corner of our neshama, and we move on with pride and joy. But for a few days of the year, we open up that little part of our hearts, and we're like, Waterbury, Connecticut? Are you serious? We do not belong in Waterbury, Connecticut. It's not where we belong. You know, I had this feeling like when we were coming back from Eretz Yisrael, like, isn't it, you know, those of you that have gone back and forth, especially those of you, you know, like, when we lived there, you know, you're like, you remember the feeling when you're in Eretz Yisrael of like, I will never, ever be happy as long as I live. Because I'm either going to be in Eretz Yisrael and missing all the people that I love, or I'm going to be in America missing Eretz Yisrael. But I will never be happy again, unless Mashiach comes. But that is a part of the gullus, that we're splintered. We're splintered around the world. And this is the time of year where we say, what is this? Yidden belong in Goyish countries? Yidden belong... There's a doubt. Could you imagine that people have a hava mina that the government in Eretz Yisrael could successfully ward off being surrounded by millions of Arabs and stop the yeshivalites from learning Torah? That there's even a hava mina that someone could even think that it's possible that they will be protected without people learning Torah? That's the world that we live in, that people think such a thing? That's crazy. We do not belong in such a world. And we are going to actively get ourselves out of that world, because we are not going to be passive mourners this Tisha B'Av. We're going to be active builders. We're going to sit on the floor. It's a throne on the floor, you know, because the floor says that we're majestic people, that we don't belong here. And we're going to cry to HaKadosh Baruch Hu to become close to us, and by crying to Him, He will come closer to us. And when the actual global geula comes, I don't know. But I know that every single one of us that does that will get up from the floor being a little bit more geuladik, being a little bit more redeemed, a little bit more closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And my bracha to you is that should the gzeira be from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that we have to sit on the floor of this Tisha B'Av, that you learn what that satisfying feeling could be of going through Tisha B'Av. And I know many of you can't make it to shul on Tisha B'Av, and you're being mis'abel al Yerushalayim while you're reading books and running after kids and doing all the things that you know, the very, very, very special, important things that you're doing. But whatever the avodah is of Tisha B'Av, for each one of us, some of us don't feel so well on Tisha B'Av, and we're just going to be trying to take care of ourselves and getting through the fast. Perhaps there are people here or listening that are not going to fast this Tisha B'Av because the Rav told them not to fast. And their avodah of Tisha B'Av is going to be to eat with sadness instead of to fast. Whatever it is, wherever place HaKadosh Baruch Hu put us. But we are going in as soldiers. We're going in knowing that we're royal soldiers, and we're not going in passive. We're going in active. The sadness of Yerushalayim. Kol ha-mis'abel al Yerushalayim, zoiche v'roya b'nechamasa. Whoever mourns Yerushalayim is zoiche to see the ultimate consolation, the ultimate geula yashkayach. Thank you. Thank you. Serious nefesh to go the whole time without